Here we go, guys. Happy Friday. Thank you for coming over to the DFS 5-pack. If you can click the thumbs up button, I want to give away some free stuff today. Hopefully everybody had a Thursday night that was for the ages. If you didn't, as per usual, we got ourselves another slate tonight. We got some NFL rolling tomorrow. I want to wish everybody the best of luck on everything that you're going after today. Let's talk about tonight's basketball slate, my friend. Another bigger slate by NBA standards, assuming these games play, of course.
Yeah, assuming they play a nice sized Friday night slate. I always have liked these Friday night NBA slates. I actually always like the Friday night everything slates. Just feels good. Weekends coming up, even though most days are basically the same for us anyways.
Pretty much these days, guys. So we'll break this one down for you. I'll tell you guys who we like today. In standard NBA DFS fashion, things are about to change as the day progresses. Even things as simple as last night. You could have your inklings on what you thought the Rockets were going to do throughout the day. But you didn't really ever know. Was Sterling Brown going to start? Wasn't he going to start? Was Macklemore going to start? Wasn't he going to start? You kind of had to wait that one out. As it stands right now, we don't have as many COVID issues today, but the day is early.
Exactly. At least for now, we don't have those issues.
All right, guys. As far as promotions of the day, so yesterday we talked about getting 250 likes. That's usually a big ask, so we'll tone it down to 200 today. If we can get 200 people to click the like button on this video, we will give away a free NBA package. We'll go to one lucky viewer or customer or whatever you want to call it. All you got to do is click the like button. We get 200 of those. We'll just give one away free of charge, no cost. Also, if you buy the NBA package today, you get NFL picks for the rest of the playoffs on the house for free. No cost to you additional than what it costs to get to the NBA package, which is all up through the website. If you want to just check her out for a day, hit up a day pass, all done through the website. Again, guys, click the thumbs up button, and we will continue to roll through this. Sticking with the new format for the year, and let's start with the cash game lock. Lucky Luka Doncic in a good spot again, which he does most days because he's just really good at the game of basketball. So he's my cash game lock for the day. 56.5 points or more in 5 straight with 70-plus performances in 3 of those. He is back to being the Luka that we've known him to be, especially last year. He struggled to start the season because he couldn't make an outside shot. Now the outside shots are falling, which means you now have to respect him, which means he'll do the old show and go. Get up in his face, he brings it into the paint, and he either gets to the hoop or he gets an assist. He got KP back, which is actually good for him. Gives him another guy who's really good out there to play some basketball with. This could be a get-up spot in the matchup with Giannis. If you read into things like that, hey, another feather in the cap for you. Last time we saw him take on Milwaukee, it was in the bubble last year. He did 36, 19, and 14. I don't think you even need to do the math on that one, friends, to know that is a very good DFS game. I expect him to be popular in this spot today, so I think he's a good cash game lock. But quite honestly, if you like him, don't worry about the ownership. Just run him out there in tournaments because he's very capable of upside on this price.
I mean, if you like him, play him. You saw it last night. He was popular, and you basically needed him to win a GPP with that close to 80 spot. He's been doing that on the regular lately. Again, you mentioned it, get up spot against the Bucks. We don't have as much value as we've had, the past few days right now, but we've got enough, not hard to fit Luka, and if anything, more value is just going to come out. So he looks really good in cash games. He looks really good in GPPs. He's more of a lock in cash games because, the idea of fading him means more in tournaments. That being said, he's a damn risky fade.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what his ownership's going to be today, but I would expect he's at least 50% in cash games.
I was going to say I expect him to be like what he was last night in tournaments, around 45%.
Okay, so kind of along the same line. He gets love every day because he's Luka and he's fantastic and he's playing well right now. Again, 56.5 or better in 5 straight, which means he's hit minimum cash value in 5 straight with GPP upside in 3 of those.
No doubt about it.
And the Bucks, I didn't even mention, yes, they're very capable of good team defense, but they also play at a very fast pace. We saw the Mavericks beat them twice last year, so they obviously got a pretty good feel of how to attack Milwaukee. They even won the first game of the year in Milwaukee without Luka. So as far as just the Mavericks from a coaching strategy standpoint, they seem to have a pretty good feel on this Milwaukee team.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, one of Matt's all-time favorite GPP plays because, a few years ago, he was the main guy in what I think is still your biggest win ever for DFS, if I remember that correctly.
It's definitely I think it's my biggest NBA win, but more importantly, my first ever GPP win. So I'll always remember Aaron Gordon for that. He'll always be on my good side. That being said, I'm not bringing him up today because of that. I'm bringing him up today because I think he's in a fine spot against the shorthanded Boston team. You've got him and Vucevic as by far the two best players on Orlando right now. With Orlando being so shorthanded, we saw Aaron Gordon run a bunch of point guard last game. He looked good. I think he had like 8 assists. He's off his minutes limit. Again, this is a guy we know has upside when he plays big minutes. I expect this game to be competitive. It's like a 3-point spread. I don't expect him to get a ton of love because he never gets a ton of love. And kind of like last game, I think he's got 40, 45 plus in him here.
I think what's important to mention, too, is this is not your normal Boston team. They usually got a guy in Jason Tatum who's an excellent wing defender. Size-wise, he's relatively similar to Aaron Gordon. That's not playing tonight. Tatum's out. So the best guy they can match him up with, he isn't there today. And this allows him to run even freer. I think you got Boston, who hasn't played in a hot minute now, trying to integrate all sorts of new pieces, which is terrible for your team defense overall. He's also a very, very streaky player. But right now, he's streaking in the right direction. Like Will Ferrell on the movie Old School, he'd be streaking.
He is streaking in the right direction. And just as a side note on this game, after a stretch, I was already thinking about it after hearing you say that. I think Orlando's very live to win this game.
Oh, I think they do win this game, especially with Brown's out.
Okay, in Boston, I do too. And not really worried about like Orlando blowing out. And if they do, I'm sure Gordon played well.
I'm subtly worried about Orlando blowing out if Jaylen Brown can't go tonight. Just because then they just don't have much offensive firepower. And Orlando, while not being a great team, still has some better pieces. But I agree with that last point that if Orlando were to blow out, Aaron Gordon likely at least hit a minimum number of 4 points for you.
And we talk about this with blowouts a lot. Like the guys you really don't want for blowouts are the guys, from the other side that's getting blown out, and also like really expensive guys. Gordon's neither of those.
Yeah, I know the Pacers-Blazers game didn't turn out until a blowout till kind of very much at the end. But Lillard and McCollum are awful, while Sabonis and Brogdon lost a couple minutes, but they were fantastic.
Exactly. So maybe if the game had been closer, they might have gotten a little higher upside. But it wasn't like you needed to avoid them. The guys you needed to avoid were the Blazer guys.
Yes, sir. All right, next up, we're talking about today's cover boy. I hate going and doubling up on point guards, but I like both of these guys a lot today. And I don't think Shai is overwhelming chalk because I think Luka eats a lot of the point guard ownership. Now, again, you're not going to get Shai at 1%, guys. You're just not. It's not the situation that you're in today. But this is a guy that I like. I drafted him in a lot of year-long leagues this year because I think he's going to continue to rise and get better as the season progresses. He had a great 3-game streak against the Nets, the Knicks, and another team that's skipping my mind right now. And then he came back home, didn't love him in the first game against the Spurs, and hated him on that tail end of the back-to-back against the Lakers. So had zero interest in those 2 games. That's not the situation here tonight. I love him tonight against a Bulls team that offers the Oklahoma City Thunder a huge uptick in pace. I believe they're number 3 in pace of play. They haven't played in a little bit. So again, bringing back some new pieces. You don't expect elite team defense right here. I think this is going to be a competitive game with a nice pace. And I think Shai has every opportunity to roll back into one of those 50-point games. I'm expecting at least 20 points. And at least, 6 or 7 assists and 6 or 7 rebounds in this situation, grabs a couple of steals. I think he's got a good opportunity to roll back into one of those 50-point performances.
Yeah, this is a guy we talked about a bunch on our members-only videos. It seems like every slate. And when you think it's going to be a close game, especially against a team that you're not scared to pick on, Shai looks good. Under 8K now. You mentioned it. In the 3 games before those 2 you mentioned, he was 50-plus in all of them. He's in another good spot to get that here. Chicago's got no one. We're worried about stopping him. We think the game will be close. I mean, that's really the recipe you want for Shai. I like him quite a bit in here for all the reasons we both talked about.
The Bulls are a much better offensive team than defensive team. So they are going to be a good team to target for the majority of the season. Maybe not quite to the level of the Kings, but like they're right there. They don't play great backcourt defense. Zach LaVine is a very, very good offensive player. He's not a great defensive player. So guys like Shai just find themselves in good positions.
Mm-hmm.
LaVine, and I was thinking about this the other day, when we talk about scorers, he's really, to me, just moved his way up the list of top scorers. You know what I mean? Like, just as far as scoring goes, like, he's really, really good. He's not quite the same, he's not a great player because he doesn't play great defense. And while he gets assists, it's a little bit more of a byproduct of having higher usage. But, man, that dude can just flat out score the basketball.
Yeah, guys like Booker. We talk about Beal, CJ McCollum. I put Levine in that category of guys who can score. If starting my team today, I'd probably rather have like Beal than Levine. But in the right spot, I think that Levine could be very good. And you're right, as far as scoring the ball goes, he's with those guys for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely ratcheted up. All right, guys, let's move into long shots of the day. And as I was struggling to pick one out, I thought about a guy that we talked about briefly for the Clippers, and I want to make sure everybody listens to the caveats on this one. And like the fact that like it's not a guy that like you were digging on was why, to me, he firmly fits into the category of long shot today, and that's Nicholas Batum with the Los Angeles Clippers. Because I don't think most people want to spend 5,300 on him, and I understand. And I will say my desire to play him has a lot to do with the availability of Patrick Beverley and Lou Williams this evening. If one or two of those guys are out, I like Batum significantly more because he's now stuck in a position of playing some de facto point guard for the Los Angeles Clippers. See Jayshawn Tate last night, for example. For my money, right now, Sacramento is the top team to pick on from a DFS perspective. Very good offensive team, especially with Buddy Hield rolling again. Terrible defensive team. So I think Batum is one of those guys that, like much in the Draymond Green role, only a slightly better, a better shooter. I won't even say slightly because Draymond Green's trash at shooting. Could easily walk into like 8 assists, 8 boards, and 10 points today, throwing a couple steals, give you some upside at the forward positions. Also, very importantly, and something else that you addressed early in the season that we've now kind of worked into the rotation of what we talk about on a daily basis, having those late night pivots. You got a Clippers team in a great spot today against the Kings. However, you got two pieces in Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley that are questionable. We don't know if they're going to play or not. And there's a good opportunity we don't find out about those guys. There's only one other late game, and it's the Lakers against the Pelicans. We also might have some Eric Bledsoe news there that might determine like what you want to do with that team. So have those late night pivots and have a strategy to what you might want to do if some or none of these guys play.
Yeah, you're absolutely right here. I kind of had a feeling you might go here after we talked about him on the video, and I just poo-pooed him. And you're right. I think a lot of people will do that at 5,300 because no one, except maybe you, is excited about playing Batum at 5,300. That being said, I love your points, especially if those guys are out. The Kings are a plus-plus matchup. He's going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to play some de facto point guard. And it's not inconceivable to see him walk into 30, 35 DK points here on a slate like we've already talked about without as much value. He also gives you the late exposure. So I get it. Really only interested for me if one or both of those guys are out, but kind of sounds like you're the same.
Yeah, like if both of those guys play, he's probably not going to make my lineup. I still think he can be solid because he plays big minutes and he does enough things, but he doesn't become anything close to a priority for me unless those guys, at least one of them, specifically Beverly, because Batum runs with the starting unit. And that's where Beverly wouldn't be in there. I don't know off the top of my head. It might be Reggie Jackson, whoever they might throw into the starting lineup. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But Beverly's got a personal issue. So I think there is a good opportunity for him not to play tonight. This is also a game the Clippers probably don't need him to try to win. So maybe he doesn't rush back or for whatever reason it might be. But just keep your eyes peeled. And if we don't know about those guys, and you wait this one out, knowing that there are some other pivots that you can make with the late games, I think Batum's like 2%.
Agreed.
So like a true definition of a long shot. Did you happen to see it because yesterday I brought up TJ McConnell. Do you have any idea what his ownership percentage was yesterday?
On the late slate, he was like really low owned. I used him once on the late slate. So let me just pull it up, and that should tell you even more how unowned he was,
Yeah, I'm assuming nobody cuts because we had so many paid on options, and it was tough to get to a McConnell over any of the Rockets guys. However, while he was outscored by Jayshawn Tate and Sterling Brown, I played McLemore in my main lineup, but McConnell doubled his score.
Okay, he was actually higher owned in the later slate. He was 20%. So I don't know what he was on the main slate.
Yeah, but I would say it's under 5.
Agreed.
Because they had the Rockets game and your late slate didn't.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, let's move over to your long shot of the day. A young man by the name of Xavier Tillman, who, again, I think we talked about this one on members only. He might fall out of place simply because there might be like huge monster value that comes out. But as the day stands at 11:31 Central Standard Time, we are not bombarded with the same value that we have the last couple of days, as of now.
Yeah, as of now. And even so, like this is a guy that's been in play the past couple slates, and I like him again here. A game I expect to be competitive, although it doesn't really matter for him. He's basically replaced Gorgie Dang in the rotation. And at 3,300, playing around 20 minutes, he's a big man that can walk into DFS points because, again, we talk about this a lot. Filler options that we look at that are cheap, point guards and big men. Tillman is just that, a big man. He was productive at Michigan State. A guy I watched a long time, played there for a few years, seemed like he was in the Big Ten forever. Minnesota is not very good. He's power forward eligible, which helps, which gives you multiple places to play him. I doubt we'd want to use a center spot on him. And again, you're not looking for, I don't think he's going to throw up like 40 DK points here, like some of the value plays we've seen recently, but we don't have that on this slate. Give me 20 to 25 here, the opportunity to roster guys like Luka, Shai, and Giannis, and I'm happy.
Yeah, the power field LWB. Are we screen sharing right now? I hit my computer and bumped it up.
We are.
Right, cool. Just want to make sure. I think for me, and I mentioned this in members only, he's got 17 plus minutes in 6 straight games. He's clearly carved out a role with this Memphis team. Now, Ja Morant might be back tonight. Take that for what it's worth, but he's not going to be specifically eating into Tillman's minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult for people to look at the NBA who don't watch it a ton to realize when a guy coming back matters or doesn't matter. Like the fact that the Rockets didn't have a point guard last night, as we did like a cash lineup review, like you really didn't know who was going to run the point guard. Like you didn't think Tate, listed at power forward, was going to play point guard, but he had a lot of point guard duties last night. Well, when Morant comes back, he's simply eating into Tyus Jones and Melton.
Yeah.
He's not eating into a power forward right here. There's no correlation to me.
No correlation at all. So even we talked about in the members only video, Alexander Walker and Zion. Alexander Walker gets a lot of his points from shooting and scoring and having the ball in his hands. When Zion's on the court, he's just not going to have that opportunity as much. So the correlation is real there. Here, it's not. Tillman is not a guy we're using because we think he's going to have a high usage, the ball in his hands a lot, taking a lot of shots. First off, you're right. Morant's not going to eat into his minutes. He's only playing 20 minutes a game as the backup center. But even more so, when he's on the floor, Tillman will just walk into DFS points by getting rebounds, scoring a little bit. It's not like we were expecting plays called for him anyways, right?
No, not in the slightest. You said, I haven't checked, is Gorgie Jang completely out of the rotation or just not playing much? I haven't looked the last couple of days.
I know that Tillman's been playing all his minutes, so I don't think he's played the past couple of days.
I hadn't checked. I haven't used him recently and haven't been watching the Memphis backup guys quite as close, so I wasn't 100% sure, but that's where they're coming from. Because Jang was a guy who'd been playing, and I kind of like Gorgie Jang, but they're not using him. I think he has a role on somebody, but it's not here apparently.
I heard this mentioned because I don't think people are really, again, you just asked me, we weren't really sure. I heard this mentioned a couple games ago. Someone, sharp that I listened to, Tillman has replaced Gorgie Jang in the rotation. And now I just looked at it. Jang hasn't played since against Brooklyn on the 8th. And I know that there's a couple games since then. So it does seem like Tillman, like you said, has carved out a nice role. They don't want to play J-Val huge minutes. I expect him to play 17 to 20 here.
Yeah, until JJJ comes back, Triple J. There should be a role. This team might have too many big men. I think Jang should have a role somewhere because he's actually a stretch 4/stretch 5 that could play for some teams. I just don't know where off the top of my mind.
For sure. And I also think there's a chance Morant being back could help Tillman just because they're going to be better, get him easier looks. All of a sudden, if Morant gets Tillman 3 dunks, he could have his best game of the year,
Speaking of stretch 4s and stretch 5s, as a Milwaukee Bucks fan, God, is it painful to watch Christian Wood play this well and know that we traded him for a ham sandwich in 43 minutes in Nikola Mirotic.
Yeah, right.
Talk about all-time bad moves. And I realized that because I remember saying to you back in the day, as I would watch every day, I'd be watching the Bucks games and Christian Wood would be Christian Wood with another 100 points and 83 rebounds in this game. And you're I don't know, man, it's the G League. A lot of guys can do that. I'm I don't know. I'm thinking this dude might be a player. And then we traded him for nothing. I'm well, clearly they know more than I do. Apparently he's just good. I like this kid's story. Christian Woods, as Shaq would call him. It's a fun story for the Houston Rockets who need to have some fun right now. So it's good to see a guy like that who's been cut over and over again, playing hard and just really, dedicating time to his craft and just playing awesome. But it would be even better if he was doing it for the Bucks. For
sure. It is funny to me when, anyone could do that in the G League. No one does that in the G League, though. You know what I mean? I get your point. I'm not arguing with your point, but it should have been eye-opening to those teams that he was so good. Is my point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between putting up numbers and being a good basketball player that helps team wins. We know that for sure. But if you're going for 30 and 20 on the regular,
right?
There's something there. Like, you're not a scrub. Maybe, like, you see some guys, like I've talked about, like Allen Iverson for years. Like he jumps off your television screen, right? Like, he scores at will. It's amazing what he can do, but he doesn't really translate to wins because, eye test, numbers, and translating to wins they can all be a little bit different. The point I was trying to make, though, like, man, if you're scoring 30 and rebounding 15 every night, you could do something.
Like, even though you might not think Iverson is like the ultimate winner, he still had a place in the NBA. I'll tell you that much.
Well, pound for pound, he's about as talented as any player that we've ever seen, right? Like, he's like my height, only like he's athletic and good at basketball. You know what I mean? So, like, from the idea of me being able to finish around the trees and these 7-foot guys in the rim, I'm like, nah, that's not human. That's not even possible. What he did was amazing. But there's a reason it didn't equate to a lot of winning at the NBA level.
Truth, but I'll say this, though. Like, it depends what you mean by winner. Like, was he a winner like Kobe Bryant? No. But he was the best player on his team that was in the playoffs every year, made the finals once. Like, again, it's what you're comparing him to. Is he like an all-time great winner? No. But for a guy that – go ahead.
I've seen, like, because you know how people hate on LeBron, right? I cannot tell you. I spend so much time on social media posting our videos and stuff like that. The number of times I've seen people be like, Iverson was better than LeBron. Like, come on. Get out of here with your idiocy and moron. It's like, it's not even close. Iverson might be a better dribbler. He might be, maybe even technically a better scorer, quote unquote. But if you think Allen Iverson is a better player than LeBron James, I just give you no credit in a basketball argument.
It's hard to take anything you say seriously. I'm with you there. Like, I mean, yeah, Iverson was a great player. And I think a big thing about Iverson was he was kind of just like a trendsetter and a generational guy. Like, he changed the way guys dress, and he, had such a impact on the youth. I think a lot of guys now have games kind of molded after him, which is why he'll always be remembered like that.
Well, because when you watched him play, you're like, I don't get how he does that. And like, you and me as like guys with like average height,
right?
Like, it's more relatable for me to look at a 5'11", 185-pound guy and be like, "Oh, that guy's my size," and be like, "That's kind of amazing." When I look at Shaquille O'Neal, like, I'm never going to be 7'2", 300 pounds. I could be 300 pounds, but not at 7'2". And trust me, I'm not athletic at that point. So it's just more relatable to your average man.
It's very true. Very true.
It's just more impressive. And that's why, like, I'm very, very hard on Kyrie Irving, for a lot of the same reasons. But the fact that he can finish in the lane the way that he does around guys a foot taller than him, to me, is amazing. Like, I just think it's incredible. His skill set is virtually unparalleled. It's just, it doesn't always equate to winning. He's kind of a head case.
Amen.
So, I don't know. It's fun to talk about this stuff. And I do, again, I'm hard on both of those dudes. I love seeing little men who can do what they do, because to me, that's more impressive. I'm a huge LeBron James fan, but he's a physical freak of nature. And when you're 5'11" like Iverson, it is a little bit more impressive.
Yeah, I mean, agree. There's definitely things that are more impressive because, most people that size couldn't do it. And that's also part of the LeBron's greatness, though, is he has all those physical attributes, but he's also like a step ahead and has all the mental attributes too, and is willing to work hard and do all, like, he is the total package. I mean, honestly, he's the best athlete that I'll ever see in my lifetime. I'm convinced of it.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I know there's people who don't like him, and I get that, guys, but he's incredible. He's been a joy to watch for 20 years.
It's more like the top Cleveland athlete that we'll ever see.
Yeah, I don't know. I like what he's brought to the game. I've enjoyed it. He's been polarizing, which I think makes for better conversations about him. But you get LeBron, and you just instantly become a contender. And that's pretty incredible. So there's really good arguments for him all over the board.
Yes, sir. That
being said, again, like I said, I'm hard on Kyrie and AI, but to do those things at 6'1" and 5'11" are, it's impressive.
Incredible.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's what I got for today, or what we got for today. Appreciate y'all watching. Click the thumbs up button. Let's continue to give away some free stuff. You help us, we'll help you.
Thanks, guys.